Hi everybody, TJ Mac Vintage Cards, and in today's video I'm doing another one where I talk about what I appreciate about my vintage card collection. And this is really an ongoing series of videos I do usually monthly, where I talk about the cards that I have in my collection and what I enjoy about having those cards. And for me, collecting vintage cards really is an experience. It's a way of connecting with the past. These pieces of cardboard with photographs, they're really reflections of what used to be. When I add cards to my collection, I'm capturing that piece of history. That moment of time resides in my collection for me to enjoy and connect with. Now, I read many books, internet articles, and watch videos on sports. And when I read about a player, I love knowing that I have that card in my collection, that it's carefully preserved where it's going to reside for decades to come. Now, collecting for me is really not about money. Like many of you, I have a 401k, I have bonds, I have precious metals that do all that. That's what I plan on retiring on. I'm happy that I have something of value, of course, in my collection. I spend a lot of time in my collecting pursuits, and it's nice to know that it does have monetary value, but that is not what motivates me at all. And I also don't spend a lot of time nitpicking my cards and what's wrong with them. Sure, I want to have quality in my collection, but I don't care to spend my time with you each week dissecting the condition of the cards. I'd rather celebrate the history they capture and the nostalgia they evoke. And that's what's really important to me about collecting. There's really something special about holding that piece of history in your hand when you hold one of these vintage cards that I just really appreciate. And this here is a 1935 Diamond Stars of the great screwball pitcher Carl Hubbell. And this card was produced from 1934 to 1936. Now, in 1934, Hubbell pitched probably the best 2 innings in Major League history when he struck out Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Jimmy Fox, Al Simmons, and Joe Cronin in that order. Now, all 5 of these players are Hall of Famers. And it was Cardinals second baseman Frankie Frisch that said, "I could play second base for 15 more years behind that guy. He doesn't need any help." And it was in the 1934 season that Hubbell would win 21 games and post a league-leading 2.30 ERA. He also led the league that year with 8 saves. And this is just really a beautiful example of a 1935 Diamond Star. And on the back here, as I've said many times, you can tell it's a 1935 on the Diamond Stars. Let's bring my camera in a little more closer. Because you can see here, it talks about the seasons. It says he won 21 and lost 12 in 1934, and won 2 and lost none in 1933. So you know it's a 35 because it references the 34 season on it. So just a really nice card that I'm happy to have in my collection, and these Diamond Stars are just fantastic. And in the front here, what I like about it is they actually put the team name with the logo on the caps. And I noticed in the Gaudies, they didn't do that like they do with the Diamond Stars, and that's one of the things that I do appreciate about that set. Another card I enjoy having is this 1966 Frank Robinson, and it's shown in his Reds uniform, even though it says he plays on the Orioles. And what I like about this card is this was his Triple Crown season where he batted .316 with 49 home runs and 122 RBIs. He also won the American League MVP and led the Orioles in their first World Series as they swept the Dodgers in 4 games. It was after the '65 season that the Reds traded Robinson to the Orioles, thinking at 30 years old, his best years were behind him. The Reds thought that by trading Robinson, they could acquire pitching to make them a contender. Now, I love this card because it has a story to it. I can imagine kids in Cincinnati opening packs of 66 tops and finding this Robinson staring back at them in the sleeveless Reds jersey, saying, "You traded me for Dick Simpson, Milt Pappas, and Jack Bulchin. Serves you right finishing in 7th place, 18 games out of 1st. It's not just baseball that captures the great history. I'm also a football collector, and these 2 greats from the 1975 top set, Roger Staubach and Drew Pearson, are forever tied together as a result of one of the greatest games played of all time. And they, in that game, had one of the greatest pass plays ever. It put the term Hail Mary into the football lexicon. It was the NFC Championship game played on December 28, 1975, between the Cowboys and Vikings in Minnesota. The Cowboys were trailing 14-10 and had the ball with just 24 seconds left in midfield. The season appeared to be lost. Staubach breaks the team from the huddle, takes the snap, and heaves a prayer to a covered Drew Pearson that is about 5 yards short of the end zone. Pearson adjusts his route and collides with cornerback Nate Wright. He catches the ball, keeps his balance, and crosses the goal line for the game-winning score. After the game, Staubach said, "It was a Hail Mary pass. He just threw it up there as far as he could to see what would happen." And as a result, the Cowboys ended up going to the Super Bowl that year against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, the 75 top set is one of my favorite sets overall. But again, it's like when you have these cards, I can hear these stories and watch these videos, and I have that piece of history in my hands that I can just pick up and look at anytime I choose to. I just love having these wonderful cards in my collection that I can enjoy and just have that added connection with. Now, here's a 1979 Topps Willie Stargell. I've shown this card before. And this is a card that I really especially connected with. The Pirates versus the Orioles in 1979 was the first World Series I remember. I was in grade school at the time, and I just became enthralled with the We Are Family Pirates and their aging leader, Willie Pop Stargell, and this guy right here that I've added to just further that connection to that era, the flamboyant right fielder, Dave the Cobra Parker. Now, what I loved about the Pirates as a kid at that time is they were known for their various gaudy uniforms they sported throughout the year. It was said they had 64 different combinations. Now, my favorite are the ones depicted right here, the full yellow uniforms. And what I just loved about this team was just that personality that they had and that drive that they had to succeed in every game they played, and just the overall environment that they had as a team. You know, just everybody seemed to get along real well, and it was just an interesting band of players. And that year, the Pirates were trailing 3-1 in the World Series to the favorite Orioles, but they stormed back, winning games 5, 6, and 7 by scores of 7-1, 4-0, and 4-1 to win the World Series. And just seeing these two great cards takes me back to those days as a kid again. Here we have the 1975 Topps Joe Ferguson, 1975 Topps Bill Stanfield, and the 1976 Topps Bob Greasy. Now, I call this arrangement of three cards from domination to reclamation. And I love the action shot of Stanfield's card. These are the days when quarterbacks took a beating. As you can see here, Stanfield's just leaping up in the air just to grab and sack Joe Ferguson in this picture. And what's really cool about this card is it symbolizes the domination that the Miami Dolphins had over the Buffalo Bills. The two teams would meet twice a year from 1970 to 1979, with the Dolphins winning all 20 games of the decade. The streak finally ended on September 7th, 1980, at Rich Stadium in Buffalo, as Joe Ferguson quarterbacked the Bills to a 17-7 victory over Bob Greasy's Dolphins. Now, I remember that game as the fans stormed the field and tore down the goalposts. It was that day the Bills reclaimed their place in the AFC East, and they went on to win the division for the first time since 1966. Bills owner Ralph Wilson said it was the biggest win in team history, bigger than their AFL championships. And the Bill Stanfield card is really one of my favorite football cards ever. Stanfield was a good player. He just played only 8 seasons, but in those 8 seasons, he was a 5-time Pro Bowler and a 1-time All-Pro. So he really was an excellent player for his day. And Joe Ferguson was a longtime quarterback of the Buffalo Bills in the 70s into the 80s. And, of course, Bob Greasy's a Hall of Fame quarterback with the Dolphins. So I love putting these images together and just evoking the memories of those special events and times. The last two cards I'm going to show today are these 1984 Topps Don Mattingly and Dave Winfield. Now, I remember this summer well as Donnie Baseball, as he was known, took the baseball world by storm, smacking 207 hits, 23 home runs, and driving in 110 RBIs. Now, though the Yankees finished far behind in the American League East standings to the eventual World Series champion, the Detroit Tigers, Mattingly was locked in a race with Dave Winfield, who really shortened his swing that season in 1984 and raised his batting average by over 55 points from his .283 average in 1983. And he competed with Mattingly that year for the batting title. It came down to the last game of the season against the Tigers. Mattingly, who trailed Winfield by 2 percentage points before the game, and in the final game of the season, he had 4 hits and 5 at-bats against the Tigers that day to Winfield's 1 hit and 4 at-bats. Mattingly finished the year with a .343 batting average to Winfield's .340 batting average, and he won his first and only batting title. And that race between the two for the batting title was celebrated in a 1985 Donruss card called Two for the Title that I remember as a kid. So this is what I wanted to share today, and just, really showing you that, my love for these cards just really crosses over into my love of sports history and that nostalgia. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a great weekend.